In our recent video, which you can find up here, we shared what we felt was a great starter multimeter that was low cost and very easy to use. Today we're going to talk about a more complex and functional device which costs a little bit more and is a little bit more complicated to use but has some fantastic features. So keep watching.
Don't forget to check out our other videos on everything campervan and motorhome related, from solar to water, heating to gadgets, tyres to trips. If you like this video, please do hit the thumbs up. It really does help me to know what you like, and you can ask any questions or give feedback in the comments. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of our future videos, please hit the subscribe button, and clicking the bell will give you a notification when a new video goes live. Finally, if you do decide to hit the thumbs down, it would be great if you could also leave a comment so I'd know what you didn't like. The Mestek CM86B clamp meter from Banggood is a highly spec'd multimeter at a reasonable cost. After we spotted it, Banggood very kindly sent us this one to try out. Before we have a closer look, let's review the key features it has. It can measure AC and DC current both through its test leads and through its clamp, which we'll see later. It can measure AC voltage and frequency, DC voltage, resistance, it has a continuity tester, which again we'll see later, and it's auto ranging, so you don't have to mess around with different settings and calculating the factor of measurements. It's got non-contact voltage sensing, which we're going to use later, and live wire detection. It can test capacitors and diodes. It comes with a temperature sensor to measure temperature, and something that many multimeters don't have is the ability to measure AC current inrush, which you might know as peak or surge current. To make it easy to work with, it has a backlit screen and a work light built in, and the hold function lets you freeze the screen to retain a reading. It is certified up to category 3 usage of 1000 volts and category 4 at 600 volts. Now that's going to be far more than we're likely to ever need as DIYers. So now let's take a look at the unit itself. Inside the protective case we have the instructions, the meter itself, a set of good quality test leads, and the temperature sensor. The unit itself feels reassuringly robust and chunky, with easy to use buttons and controls. Everything is well marked out and the screen is easy to read. It's powered by 3 AAA batteries which weren't included. So now let's try out some of its more interesting features. As you can see, our kettle stopped working. Let's see if we can work out why. So using the non-contact voltage setting, we're going to see that power isn't getting to the kettle, it's not getting to the base, there's none in the cable, but when we get to the socket we can see that there is power at the socket. So that leads us to think the fuse in the plug. So after attaching the leads, we've set the settings to continuity, which means the meter will beep when there's a connection between the probes. And with the fuse we removed, we can see that there is no connection, indicating that this fuse has blown. Now this could indicate a problem with the kettle. We know it isn't because we've blown it on purpose, but now we've got a new fuse which we can see does connect. We can pop this into the plug, and setting the meter back to non-contact voltage, we can see that we're now getting power in the cable, in the base. And when we put the kettle on, sure enough, it works. There are loads of places in a van when on hookup and you have a problem that it's good to know where the power is getting to. So this non-contact voltage sensor is great for doing this easily and safely. Now we're going to try out the AC current measurement using the clamp. To do this you need to have just the live conductor inside the jaw, so the easiest way to do this for me was at the back of a socket. I wanted to try out the inrush or peak surge measurements. Lots of you will know that a piece of mains equipment may use a few amps when running, but they often have a surge on startup which many meters aren't fast enough to measure. Let's see how this one gets on. For this test I'm using a mains vacuum cleaner, as I know they will have quite a surge. So first, on the standard AC current measurement, we can see that 7.9 amps briefly flashes up before it settles down to around 3.6 amps. So at 240 volts, that looks like a surge of around 1900 watts and a constant power of 860 watts. But now let's hit the inrush button and test again. Now we can see that the surge was actually 10 amps, so 2400 watts. So should we want to run it from an inverter, we would now know that a 2000 watt peak inverter wouldn't be enough, even though it only uses 850 watts when running. Meters that can measure AC current through the clamp are quite common, but this one is also able to measure DC current, which is particularly useful in a camper van. After we've zeroed the meter, we can measure the current being used by our Huawei router to see how much of a drain it would be on our battery. Simply by having the positive wire feeding the router running through the clamp and switching on the router, we can see how much it uses at startup and once it's settled down. So at around 0.3 amps or 300 milliamps, we can see it's quite efficient and not much of a drain. So in conclusion, despite being quite an advanced meter with lots of features, it's easy to use, well made and a good spec. Its advanced features mean you are unlikely to come across an electrical measurement task that it can't fulfill, and it's a great price. Thanks for watching our video, and as always, if you have any questions or feedback, please pop them in the comments below. If you find the video useful, please like, share and consider subscribing.